Wendy, I saw hers first, then I saw you.
We are unmuted
That was all news to me.
and ready to go.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Finance Committee meeting of May 1st, 2024. Did I not? do something?
Just mute yourself.
Am I muted? Oh, sorry.
Here.
Thank you.
Are you muted? Yes.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, good. Cool.
I'll remind everyone that everything is being recorded, so please act accordingly. We have a couple of things on the agenda this afternoon or early evening. Big one is the budget. I'd first check to see if there's anyone here for public session. Paul, anything while you're here? No. I've got no new inquiries or correspondences. Either one of you gentlemen have anything new?
I have
Okay.
nothing.
So really what we'd like to do, and again, I think we have a fairly brief agenda, is talk about the fiscal 2025 budget. A lot of work has been done on this. Give you a little background. Corey Packard, who is on the FinCom, has been working to develop sort of his master budget. And I think you have that in a position where you believe it's pretty much complete and accurate, Corey?
Yes, that's the one that was developed.
By Suzanne initially, that you've been learning how to bring yourself up to speed on and kind of fine tuning.
Updating it every month and now plugging the FY25 budget request into it, not revenue.
So what we have done over the last few days is we've taken Corey's spreadsheet and the spreadsheet that I've been using and compared them, and we were a very small number of dollars off. I think you've already tracked down what most of those are.
The budget requests were to the penny.
To the penny, right? The budget requests were to the penny, but some of the, I think, discrepancies were from the 2024 budget, actually, where there was changes made. Sometimes, Don, like when we do the special town meeting and you adjust the budget.
Yeah.
I had some corrections there that Corey didn't have, and then he had a couple of things I didn't have, so we've been
Yeah.
slowly working to get this together. But what I want to do tonight is kind of let everyone know where we're at. So I'm going to share the screen here if it's
It's on here too, Paul, if you'd like to look.
Pardon?
I was letting Paul know that was there as well.
With the work that's gone on over the last couple of weeks, Dawn, with the information you and I discussed, I guess was on Monday. I have the revenue plugged into my sheet, by the way. Corey, do you see something you want to change?
I was just making it a little
Little bigger? Thanks.
tape.
So I plugged in everything that you had provided, Dawn, the Board of Selectmen agreed to as far as cuts.
Yep.
And I guess also I can say, I can zoom it, it's easy. With all the cuts and everything we've put together, how do I move this picture again? There we go. We're sitting at just under a 2% increase, 1.86. So we've cut the heck out of this budget from where we started. We started at over 10%. And right now, the budget is reflecting a $13,416 surplus. We can run through a lot of it if you want, but I really think that that's where we're at. I think Corey and I used your spreadsheets, match mine completely, and I didn't want to touch your data, so I didn't put the revenue in, but we've got the same numbers as far as I can tell.
Does that reflect the change that was just emailed late this
No,
afternoon?
this is what I wanted to bring up. We've got an issue now that just came to light, and it really makes me rethink some of what we've done. Don, when we spoke on Monday about, let me turn my phone down. That's my wife.
I was
She's
like, I'm ready for the quacking.
no, that's we've got something going on with some stuff that she's trying to work through. Just mute it. When we met, one of the things we talked about is it was the new librarian coming on and the need for benefits. And the expectation was that we probably only needed an individual plan. And based on some comments that had been made in prior Board of Selectmen's meetings and based on Aaron's comment, I believe, last week or the week before, that he thought within I think we had 89,000 as a fill in that number, the treasurer had requested 62,000 when she submitted her budget.
Mhm.
That there was probably like 1 and 1.5 people in there if we had, if we had to bring on another full-time person. So I went to the accountant and asked her to actually look at the invoice. What are we paying for the services and everything? And she came back and after I looked at it, I said, okay, if the librarian is going to go on a individual plan, if you took the 62,000 that was submitted by the treasurer and recognizing that was a fill, as she's since stated, and added 10,000 for the individual, it brought us up to 72,000. So that's what we've been using in this budget. So with the 72,000, we have a $13,416 surplus. We've reduced expenses from over 10% to just under 2% in total. And it's been hard to make some of those reductions, and the Board of Selectmen has worked pretty hard to get through that, and I think we've done our part to identify where we think we could cut. What came up after we met on Monday and talked about this is I went to the treasurer and said, okay, here's what I have in your budget for your numbers that you submitted. And she came back and you may not have seen the actual calculations, but the Board of Selectmen, you guys signed a new contract for increase in rates for those benefits on March 4th of this year. She ran what those numbers are for us. And we go from 62,000 plus the librarian to 93,000 plus the librarian. So what's that, 35, 40,000 more we need than we thought we needed. That caught all of us off guard.
Are you using the full number of the insurance?
She just emailed it to us at about 4:30 this afternoon,
No, I don't have that.
Yeah, I don't, hang on one
and I
second.
don't think you were on it.
Stop
but
sharing if you-
We can forward it to you.
It should be,
Because
I just
we're
wanna
talking
share a
to the
different
insurance
screen.
company, they're giving you the full number. We're only paying 70%.
no, it's the 70% that she gave us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't forget, we did not include in FY 24 the increase because we didn't have the numbers at the time of the.
FY 24 tax levy, 35, 352,
So that-
3.
There's a few $1,000s there.
Give me a minute, I gotta pull it up.
You want the PDF she sent, Alan?
Yeah, I've got it here. I saved it. I'm just trying to get back into it. At least I thought I saved
It's
it.
146.44 is an increase.
I don't know if you want to read it from that. You can.
Why don't you go ahead and read it while I look for it?
Yeah.
Or you should, Don. You got better at reading a small phone than I do.
So she sent us over this
Yeah.
70% town, 30% employee.
Yeah.
Health Benefits Trust for Oakham renewal proposal. Unified plan, Network Blue, Blue Choice, Dental Blue.
Yeah.
And individual family numbers. And at the bottom, she wrote the individual times 70%. Works out to the 680.44 a month.
Yeah.
And it works out to
It's up on the
16,000
screen now too, Kurt, so you can maybe.
Okay, 16,000 and
I can't
change
see any better.
for the
but-
year. And then for the family plan, it looks like it was about 1,600 per month or 76. Is that, so times 4 employees. So that's why.
Yep.
So she said, she gave us a total budget needed of 93,000 and change.
That is before the librarian.
And that's
If I understood.
before we add or
Any of
the,
people.
or the public works director as well. We don't know what
Well, the superintendent, but the current superintendent also has benefits.
would
so
be
that
the same
should
plan.
be- I don't know that.
Yes.
Would it be the same plan? Okay,
It's
so
not gonna
they may
change.
wash
So
each
that-
other
so
out.
that-
So this is already locked in for that.
So then the librarian is
What
going to be
May
93.
change is when we replace the worker. Because Harold's going up.
Yep.
We gotta replace him. Whoever comes in, they need a family plan, it's already there. But if they need a single plan, there's a savings there. But you got two,
And he has it up on the screen now too.
single plans.
Right.
That second single plan is the librarian. We don't have two. Now we got one, which is in the police department.
I don't know. I mean, I don't, this is the first time I've seen this, was about 4:16 this
Yeah.
afternoon, so.
Adding the librarian is adding the second single plan. We don't have two single plans right now,
Well, that's helpful then.
That is helpful, yeah,
so.
if that's the case.
She took that into account.
So she knew back on March 3rd, because that's, well, maybe she just did these calculations
We-
today. I don't know when she did
We
it.
had discussed that way back, that it would probably be a full family plan,
Okay.
so.
Well, I think what Alan's just saying, we don't know if she hand wrote these notes in for us today, or if
Yeah,
she
yeah.
did that back in March.
Yeah,
But if it's two individual plans and four family plans, then we're at the 93 and change,
And
which
we're using 72 in the budget right now, so we're still in a deficit situation. We would be in less of a deficit situation,
the second single plan is January 1st,
right? So it's a half year.
so it's a half a
Right.
year, so you're saving something there.
But kind of,
But didn't we originally plug in 89,000 into that account?
you initially plugged in, and that's what I'm saying, when I talked to you on Monday, when I said I was going to go to the treasurer and get the actual numbers.
Yeah.
We were using 62,000 because that's what the treasurer gave us, and then we added the 10 to it.
Yep.
For the half year single plan, so that brought us up to the 72. So that's the number we've been using for the last week, thinking, okay, 72 is better than 89.
Mhm.
So the 89 that you had plugged in, I don't know who plugged it in. The treasurer said she didn't plug it in, so I assume that the board of
No, we
selectmen
plugged it in because then we went high for a reason,
Well, you went high because we just signed a new contract, I'm
you
assuming,
know? And
but
we did not increase last year when we should have. Because we didn't have the numbers as early as we did this year.
so where this brings us back to, in my opinion, is where do we go from here?
You're not gonna share that because you're sharing a single screen.
So what do I do? Get out of it
Just
first?
stop sharing and reshare.
Okay,
Mhm. Yeah, just go to the Zoom button at the top
that's what
there.
I'm trying to do, but it's not letting me.
It's all right. Okay. Okay, and then stop share. There you go.
So where I think we're at is the question of what do we do from here? Best case scenario, we are,
Share.
you know. Best case scenario, we are going from, again, what's in there, 72 up to 93, in the range of 93. So it's roughly a 20-some $1,000 increase from what we have tonight in the budget, what we thought the numbers were before the snow came in from Windy. So it puts us into a, again, roughly $7,000 to $8,000 deficit position. Again, and we are down to 1.86% increase in the budget.
And she's giving you the numbers for a full year second.
It's a hand, you just saw it, Don. It's a handwritten note. I don't
That's
want
what
to
I'm
hold
trying
her.
to figure out.
Yeah, I don't want to hold her to that. She said, you need to look at this. So we haven't spoken yet. We'll speak hopefully the next day or two. Until we do that, we don't know exactly what her calculations are.
I think Don's saying he thinks you can save on that second individual plan. I'm just checking that.
Again, we
number.
may be able to, but I don't know
Yeah.
that yet tonight. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that we
Well,
have something that's,
we know there's no insurance until January. We know
we
that,
know that. That's all we know right now.
all right? As far as the cost, we know the cost. It's 1,060 for the single plan, the new rate.
But
I don't have it up.
Instead of doing 12 months, we're doing 6 months.
Are you
Again,
saying,
Don, but you're either, the point I'm trying to make is we're either in a deficit position of up to 7,000 or 8,000, or maybe it's only 2,000 or 3,000.
Mhm.
But we're in a deficit position and we've cut from 10% down to 1.86%.
I think we saved that.
So
Okay,
the question is, do we want to keep cutting things, or is it time to just sort of say, okay, last year at the special town meeting, we moved $100,000 to stabilization from free cash.
Mhm.
And we moved 75,000 to capital stabilization from free cash.
Yep.
looking at it in hindsight, that was overly optimistic, in my opinion. That's, again, this is my opinion. The finance committee, other members have not voiced an opinion on this. I just feel that when I look at it, I say, you know, the town is absorbing quite a lot in cuts. Again, 10% down to roughly 2%, you know, that they've, and again, I know you had some of the group in for your meeting yesterday and you went through the police and the fire and some of the cuts that you were gonna make. I guess where I'm at is I'm saying the question to me now becomes, do we recognize that, sure, I can cut this tonight and get us down to where we're once again positive, and then we'll probably have a 0.75% increase for the whole town budget. Or should we just say, you know, we were over optimistic in what we moved to stabilization? And should we pull, again, I haven't done any calculation, but should we pull 35 or 40,000 out of stabilization and move it back into free cash as part of the town meeting? Because you have a couple of articles that need money that aren't funded yet.
Mhm.
Do we just say we can't fund those articles this year, or do we take money out of stabilization? So I think that's where I'm at, is I think we need to decide, are we gonna keep trying to trim? Because the cuts that I have now left that I think of are ones like I've talked to Lucy about at the Historical Society.
Mhm.
Could we find $500 there? Could we find 500? We can do it. But I don't know if that's the right decision, guys. I mean, I'm saying we've cut 8% out of from where we started. We're down to less than 2% of an increase in the budget, less than the 2.5% override. We're going backwards for the benefits that go to the town if you keep cutting. And again, I'm just throwing this out as an idea to be discussed. Is it time to say, you know what? We erred on the side of trying to protect that money by letting it go to stabilization or putting it there, because then it takes a 2/3 vote to bring it back and spend it versus leaving it in free cash where it's only a 50% vote to spend it. We thought we were taking a conservative approach, but we moved too much. I mean, that's, if we hadn't have moved that much, if we had moved only 125 between capital and regular stabilization, we'd have 50 sitting there and we wouldn't be having this discussion. So again, we all supported that move at that point in time. I know that the finance committee said we supported it when you guys presented it. We said I think it's good to move it to stabilization. I'm just saying, you know, when I look at everything that's out there and look at where we're at, I don't want to start cutting some of these budgets that have $500 or $1,000 and taking 10 or 20% away from them to try to make up a few $1,000s to get us to a positive or surplus position. I don't know, Corey, Steve, I've been talking a little much. What do you guys think of something like that?
Is that the only option we have left?
The other option would be to, I guess, propose an override, but I think it's kind of late for that, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't
I
do
don't
it
think you
now.
could go down that road right now. I mean, that may be something a few years down the road we have to go down.
Yeah, it's gonna.
I don't have another option I've thought of. I'm hoping one of you guys have an option.
Sorry to interrupt. I know Steve wants to talk. The only reason I ask is because to the Board of Selectmen's credit, again, for a second year in a row that I've seen it, you've cut the budget below the rate of inflation. And you need to be applauded for that. And, you know, I would make that statement at the town meeting, as we pointed out last year, like what an excellent job that is. That's very impressive, with everyone's personal costs, as Paul has spoken to, going through the roof. It's really just very impressive. The reality is, it is unsustainable year over year. Okay, so we got through last year and Alan stood up and warned the town residents, with the budget, school budget increasing the way it is, the town budget being kept as tight as it could be, we are in trouble going forward. We're again at that year where we're spending every dollar out of free cash to close this budget gap. Where does it leave us next year and the next year and the next year? That's my
And I'll
concern.
just add on top of that, if I could, Corey, don't lose track of the fact that the school budget, the Quabbin District budget is going up 5.58%, and Pathfinder is going up 12.5%. And we're going up 1.86%, and we're the town.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we don't lose track that, you know, and I know they both cut also. I'm not being critical here. I'm
Yeah,
saying
no.
everyone's done their best, but the town has gone above and beyond in cutting, and I'm not comfortable saying, let's cut some more.
And I defer to you guys. I don't know how the override process works. You have much more experience in this. The way I look at it is, stabilization is your the town savings account.
Yeah.
The free cash is what's in our wallet.
Yeah.
And we're going out to dinner and we're now spending every dollar in our wallet to go out to dinner. And now we're at the point where we want to go out to dinner tonight. We're stopping at the bank on the way to take money out of savings to go out to eat. It just doesn't make sense. Something has to change.
I agree. We knew this was coming. I
And
mean,
we talked about it.
and I'm not the biggest proponent of what our school committee does with their budget, because I don't understand how a business year over year can just keep increasing when whatever. I mean, it just doesn't make fiscally sense, but that's not for here or there. Point is that Pathfinder wasn't as high last year due to the fact that they had a lot of grants. Pathfinder went up. Obviously, they have costs, but the school districts are choking us. And we're gonna have to deal with that as a town at some point. And it's not taking them out of the savings account, that's for sure. I'm not gonna discuss problems that are gonna be for next year's budget. Let's just put it that way.
Yes, and I would invite anyone here, Don, Lucy, Paul, if someone has comments. I mean, this is, to me, is a
It's a
very
problem.
serious situation, and we should, I don't think we're gonna solve it tonight. I think I'm gonna, again, my thought would be we get to where we can, and then maybe if the BOS can meet next week, we have a joint meeting and say, okay, here's how we're gonna address it, but again, you heard what I had to say. I'm just not comfortable saying, let's cut the budget down to 1% or half.
I don't wanna do that.
And
Not with everything we're
Solve-
trying to do
solve it,
positively
so
for the
forth.
town.
Don, I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, you're the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. It's a surprise. I mean, it just wasn't something we saw coming until 4:15 this afternoon or whatever it was.
I can't speak for the rest of them because it's not official.
Right, you're not in session. I just looking for
But my
opinions.
thought would be to take 50,000 of opera and pay the salaries at the library.
Okay, we've talked about that before, but we haven't actually made a decision to do
No,
that.
we haven't.
I
We've
don't
been
know where you're,
holding that kind of in abeyance, but we do have to commit these funds by December of this year,
right, and
So-
spend them by when?
25.
You got the whole year to spend them. Again, I think you would probably have to sit down and put a pencil to that with the other Board of Selectmen and
Yeah, I would
and
have,
do all that before we
Yeah.
can start putting those kind of numbers into the budget or taking the library out, but that's another solution. We don't have that lever to pull, you guys do,
Yeah.
so.
but that would,
Because I mean, I would recommend at least 50, just to say, let's not leave ourselves with a $2,000 surplus. Because if
Exactly.
anything comes up, there should be some money in free cash. If you have to call a special town meeting in August because something happens at the center school to the wall, you want to have some money there to
Yeah.
access.
yeah.
Because
So-
we've also cut the FinCom reserve.
Yeah, we've cut the FinCon from
Yeah,
30,
FinCom
or from
reserve.
40 to 30.
Yep.
So that's where I think we're at with the budget. I think we've got a good budget. I think everyone that's worked on it has done some really good work, getting us again from over 10% down to less than 2% of the town's spending. You've asked a lot of people. You've held salary increases to 3%. And again, the cumulative inflation rate for the last 3 years is just over 21%.
Mhm.
That's 3 years. Last year, was it last year we did 3% capped at 1,500, or was that the year before?
Last year.
Last year. So we've held salaries at a roughly, I'm gonna say a 3% range for the last few years.
Yeah.
Yet over that same period of time, true compound or cumulative inflation is over 21%.
Right.
And us just continuing to cut is not going to provide the services to the people of Ocam that they're expecting, you know? So again, I guess I'm saying I support the opera. That's an option I didn't have. I didn't think of that. That's an excellent idea. I don't know what you guys think, but or if it works, we can do
If
that.
that's what we want to use it for, sure.
I mean, I don't know what else would be more important than the town budget from my perspective, but that's our job.
I mean, is there anything else that you're gonna use that for? And I'm,
Well, there would still be 100,000 left. And that's why I'm saying we can use 50 to plug this hole. We still
this
have
year.
100.
And some other towns have already done that. I know you sent me something. I think it was Rutland that did that.
Roland did
I
750.
think it's one of the New Braintree, North Brookfield, somebody else.
Yeah, Another one did.
Another one did it. I saw an article on that. And Corey, I know you've been following some of the
yes.
town articles pretty closely. So,
Sorry, Steve, I don't know if Steve was getting to it or.
No, I
or
agree
the
with-
extension of Steve's question was, what's that the remaining 100,000 earmarked for?
Or has it not been decided?
Not all of it has been.
Because I want to see stuff, not to say that we shouldn't be funding the librarian for a year. There are the things that we
Well, it
could,
could be the police department, it could be the fire department. I just picked
Yeah,
the
you just-
library.
I'm just, no, look, that's just like a one-time use.
Could be expenses in the public safety building. Who knows?
Wonderful. I just want to make, not to say the librarian is not important. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just like, there's pothole needs to be filled or something, God forbid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could go through I'm just scrolling down, I
Right.
can see, a number of places you could, you go to the accountant services, 50-some thousand, between them, 59, 60,000. I mean, there's a lot of, you can figure that out, I know.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not worried about that.
That's,
There's
right.
many
And I'm not
places
saying
to
that
go.
we're here to decide that. My whole thing was is that
I just use the library as an
Cool.
example because it's salary.
if that's,
We
and,
could take all the
works,
accountants.
yeah.
right, and that would put us in the green again.
Yeah, put us, I mean, to me, that's important that we
Not
we
including the
go in with a
articles.
surplus, not including I know there's one article for 6,000 for the assessors.
Yep.
Is that the only one that has cash value? The other one was for the center school. And that one was, we already said we were gonna take that out of stabilization already,
Yeah,
because that is going to go to Ocam Center School stabilization for 15,000. Remember, we've got the wall. It has to be repaired sometime. I think Kevin, the ground superintendent, said within the next 3 years, probably we need to address that. And this was just sort of to get
yeah,
an account established that we can start funding as we go forward, assuming we have funds to
Right.
fund it.
right.
So we just don't lose track of it and then get hit with a $60,000 or $70,000 charge down the road. So my thoughts again, guys, and jump in here if you think we're doing this wrong, is that we probably say, this is what we have right now. I will take this and make sure everyone's got, send the Board of Selectmen a copy of it also, so you have it done.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll have to meet again next week.
That's my
Decide.
question is, can get this finalized maybe next
Yeah,
week?
we have to. I mean, it's get to that.
It's getting to that.
We're gonna have to.
Yeah, because I want to see all right, because we keep doing this week after week, and I was figuring we'd be almost there, right?
I thought we were done tonight.
Yeah, that's what I
Until we got the
said.
letter or the memo from Wendy.
I just want to
thought
make
we
sure
were
that we're
done.
all clear in our messaging and our understanding of everything that's going on. I just don't want any gaps, that's all. I'm down for clown for next week, so.
Yeah, I thought we were done, but again, we got surprised late today.
We can meet Monday and finalize the numbers.
And then we meet Wednesday,
Then
right?
we can meet on
Let's meet
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
We were gonna meet Monday anyway, weren't we, no, that was Friday, to do the articles.
Yeah, this is the money part.
But we have to work out the wordings for.
Right, you
Yeah,
gotta,
of course.
Maribel already has the draft
Yeah,
thing I sent her. We're just gonna plug in the articles. Most of them are there, but there's two coming from town council,
yes,
so. And they're not money items, so.
yeah, if you move over 50 from ARPA, whichever accounts you decide to
Yeah,
apply
that's-
to, we should end up with somewhere in the range of, after getting into a surplus position, a surplus of somewhere close to 40,000, I would think.
35,
Pardon?
35,
35.
that's 6,000.
Oh, that's right, the 6, I was gonna say before articles, you're right, with the third, but that one will be around 35.
Yeah.
And there may be something else in there that I'm not aware of on the articles, that could have an impact.
I don't think there was, because
I know Corey, you've been researching
Well, I was gonna, before we get into the articles, for transparency's sake, could you run us through how many line item, budget items have been slashed that we're pushing from the annual town meeting to the fall for the special town meeting? Like, I saw snow and ice, the sand,
yeah, some of the,
so like sand and salt have been moved, they
contracted plowing.
contracted.
contracted plowing.
So it's just for the
Well, the
6
con-
people who listen to this, I was
The
curious
contracted
what's been pushed to
plowing,
the fall.
I think just so everyone understands it, or at least the way I understand it, that's something we didn't have in the budget.
Right.
It was put in as a
Safety.
article by the superintendent of highway for the special town meeting back in January. So he put it in because he was concerned, he was having such trouble getting plow drivers, basically.
Yeah.
And he said, I might have to go out and contract with an outside service to plow for us. So he put it in. We never actually used any of it.
Right.
Granted, we had a pretty mild winter.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
Yeah,
but, we've got a new superintendent. There may be a different view of some things, you don't know.
Right.
And I think the Board of Selectmen, again, when cutting this, and I watched the video earlier today from your meeting.
Mhm.
You're correct, where they did say that all of these cuts that are being made now by the Board of Selectmen have the potential to be revisited at the special town meeting if there's a need to do so. So I think that's a good point to make.
Do we have any line items in particular or any amounts that we should be aware of? That's all I'm asking.
There's the list right there, the same
Okay.
one I was just gonna pull it up, Don. I mean,
Do you want to read that to people? The record.
so the ones that were cut were 5,500 from the highway department sign and line painting items. 5,000 from highway contractor plow service is the one we just discussed. 6,000 from the police training, 4,000 from the fire department, training salary, 5,000 from Parks and Rec, and the cuts in total were 25,500. And all of these are subject to being reexamined for the special town meeting. So that's kind of what we agreed to when we agreed to the cuts. That we recognize that there may be extenuating circumstances where fire department training salaries, you know what? We want to train fire department.
yeah, exactly.
We may need that money.
Yeah.
So we may need to refund it, but they agreed to, the Board of Selectmen working with them, there was an agreement that they would make those cuts now and revisit it as we get into the later half of the year. So I thought that was fair and reasonable. If you move enough from ARPA, if you move 50 from ARPA, you would have some ability probably to refund some of those at the special town meeting because the money would be there at that point in time. Because it would be sitting there in free cash basically if you, so the way to think of it is if you don't use it for the librarian, because that's the first one we used, budget, you pay that out of ARPA, suddenly that money that was earmarked for the librarian will not be spent for anything. So again, it would be available to re-establish some of these line items, is what I believe.
It may be cleaner to use the ARPA on expenditures rather than salaries.
Yes, I would say you're probably right.
Because I know we had to do something different with Kevin using ARPA with the accountant.
Okay.
There's two payrolls. Rather than confuse the hell out of them,
Okay.
just do it out of expenses.
Okay.
And you probably can't use ARPA for the education budget.
No way.
Just a thought.
Actually, that's what Rutland did.
Oh, is it?
Really?
Okay, that's a
It
thought.
was $750 on one of their payments.
Um, But there's just so many expenses that you could apply it to.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't think it'll be hard to find 50,000 in expenses to apply to. Maybe 2 or 3 line items is all you need.
Yeah.
So unless there's something more on the budget that one of you guys have, I'm going to suggest we move on to a few other things.
I have nothing.
And we'll plan to meet next week on Wednesday after the Board of Selectmen meet on Monday, most likely. And the plan will be to finalize the budget at that point in time.
Good meeting.
Not quite done, not quite done. So, I brought along this. There's an extra one, Lucy. Want one? Oh, this is the letter that goes out. I don't know if you want to take a look at it or not. And you don't need to look at it. It's just as an example. This is what we sent out last year to the townsfolk.
Mhm.
Included in that cover letter, it says that the articles will be posted on the Board of Selectmen's website. And I know Aaron had suggested it might be a good idea to post the entire line item budget on the website. I don't know if that's something we are gonna go forward with or not. That's up to the Board of Selectmen, but it's not our call.
It's just an example.
This is just an example. I didn't want to, not, this is the only reason I brought it tonight was to remind everyone what we did last year. And basically, to get this out in time for the special town meeting, or I'm sorry, annual town meeting on June 10th. June 10th, right, Lucy? June 10th for the meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Third,
June
I
3rd?
thought it was the third.
Oh,
June 3rd.
oh, I have the wrong date, I think, in my head. Okay, I probably have June 3rd in the calendar, but June 3rd. We have to mail this out roughly 10 days or about 10 days before. So they have it a week before.
Week, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like, I think we're supposed to get it to them a week prior, so if we get it to the post office 10 or 12 days before, so we're looking at June 30th, so we're looking at the roughly, let's say the 19th to 20th of May, this has to be in the mail.
Mhm.
So I brought it tonight to just remind everyone, we've got kind of about 2.5 weeks to finish this up. print it and get it distributed.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be around.
And you're not gonna be around.
I'm leaving the 16th and I'll be back the 26th.
Okay, I'll fold your paper for you.
Oh, come on, man. That's what I'm saying. I was hoping we had this done already.
We're
I was
agreeing.
just like, all right, I'm gonna be
We
gone.
already made the commitment. We're gonna just photocopy it out here in the town hall and we'll fold it up and staple it together and mail it ourselves versus having it done.
All right.
So there's that. A couple of questions for the finance committee members. Either one of you want to take a stab at writing the cover letter?
You had asked me that in
Right.
email. I had already started a draft.
No,
No,
okay.
I'm down for you to do it. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so if you want to start, that would be great. There's a few things I'd love to see if there's a way to work in the
I was
inflation for the
I was gonna give
21% over the
I was
3
gonna give a
years.
draft to you guys
few
and then
things
we'll
like
go
that.
from there.
Okay, so let's work on that timeline. I think that's fair. Maybe we can talk about it next week when we get together again, if you get a draft done by then, just to kind of get it worked through. And Don, I'll send you and the Board of Selectmen a drafted letter, and if you have comments you'd like to see added in there or things that you think would help it be more informative, we'd ask you to provide that to us. The only other thing I had under the budget was the question regarding articles. We had the fire chief, highway superintendent, and chief of police all submit an article asking for, do you remember the coding? That's
Chapter
Mass State.
32B, section
Chapter
9A.
32B, thank you. Corey's been doing some research on that, so I don't know if you want to share a little bit of that, just what you've learned as far as the cost.
I'll let you riff first.
Well, it's, my concern is it's, if you have one person, it's gonna be somewhere in the $7,000 to $10,000 per range cost for the town, is what I understood from what you shared with me.
Is that the numbers that the accountants send over to
Yes,
us?
yeah. That was her estimate, and that's an estimate. And the problem with it is you've got to go through an whole actuarial evaluation, and it depends on the individual's age and so many other factors, that it's hard to plug a number in. But it looks like it would be in that $7,000 to $10,000 range per year. Because remember last week, we tried to put a number to a dollar.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
we
yeah.
couldn't. And you said you thought you might have some numbers somewhere also.
I had 76.
76, okay, so we're in that range, if it's around a 7 to 10,000, and the reason I interpreted what she said for the, is there a way to get rid of my name up there, Steve? That's annoying. There, thank you. Is, as I interpreted what she said and tried to read some of the stuff that Corey had sent, because Corey spent a lot of time digging into it. They do, it's just like any other insurance policy, there's an actuarial table, life expectancies, all these things that come into play as to what the actual cost is when they build that first number, from what I understood. So again, I think something in the 7 to 10 range is probably in the range.
Yeah.
And-
There's two parts to this. There's one part is you'd be paying the insurance every year.
Right,
And the other part is the trust fund.
yes, you've got to set up the trust fund
That's the actuarial part
piece,
of it.
yep.
The auditor said you don't have to do that right away. And he suggested not to do it right away because legislation is changing to make it easier to deal with.
Yeah, I only bring it up, and the reason I bring it up is it's
There's a
another,
cost to that.
it's another $10,000. Again, I'm just using 10 as a nice round number. It's another $7,000 or $8,000 or $10,000 expense per employee that you have in it. And as each individual retires, and I realize we only have a limited number of people that would be eligible. But over time, you are creating a cost that the town will bear forever as long as that individual's alive. So it could turn into something like $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000 a year in
But
additional
you
expense.
should be putting money from the budget into that trust fund every year, which then in turn creates interest in bills. And that's how you're paying for future employees.
That's the ideal way.
That's the law.
So I can speak to that. So just on a personal level, not the FinCom's opinion, I believe that the police chief, the fire chief, and the DPW superintendent, it is an excellent benefit, and I would support them in that. On a FinCom note, and again, not speaking for the other FinCom, we have to look if the town can afford it. So the accountant had weighed in with the she apparently is an expert in it. She does it for many communities, she says.
Mhm.
And she said, we're one of the few who don't currently have it, but 7,600 is an excellent number to kind of work with. But she said, basically, when you start up this OPEB, other post-employment benefits trust, you now have to stay compliant with GASB 45, which OCAM has never done.
Right.
So you then have to vote an article at the town meeting to establish the trust. You do the actuarial study to determine the long-term cost of the OPEB. She says that'll cost you another 5,500
Mhm.
every other year
Mhm.
and 750 on the alternate years. So that you have those recurring costs. And then she knows of a company that will work with us to do small town actuarial, where you have currently 10 or less employees on the plan. So they'll do it at a cost of 2,200 for the initial and 1,000 for the updates. It appears, I think those updates were every year, but she doesn't specify. She can help with some of the reviewing and pulling the data together for the reports. The study's findings must then be included in the financial audit, or it's considered a finding by our management letter by the auditor, which we would need audit reports with no findings right now, since we really need a bond rate to correct the fire truck borrowing. So if you do it right now, she envisions that being an issue for us right off the bat
For the
with-
bonding.
with the fire truck.
With the fire truck, yeah.
So just be aware that she's warning you right up front. If you do it this year, you're going to cause an issue with the bonding for the fire truck. And then, so quoting her, unless we're prepared to do all of the above and fund everything, I strongly suggest removing it for the time being. I also don't understand where article funding will be coming from this fiscal year. Is everything just being paid out of stabilization? End quote. Was what, so I then continued to dig into it. I've reached out to DLS again.
Yep.
Alan helped me reach out to them. They have no breakdowns of the chapter 32B 9A numbers. It's all rolled into a single metric of other healthcare costs. So they can't give me, so the best they could link me to was basically start looking at other neighboring towns' annual town reports. And so the one that was pointed out to me was, I apologize, I think it's right here. I wanted to make sure I have the numbers right for you. It speaks to what you were talking about, how you have to fund it. There was a lot of emails today about this. There it is. So we have talked about certain towns like North Brookfield being up to 1.8 million
1.8 this year, yeah.
per year. That's not, I can't confirm or deny in their town report that that is all related to this OPEB. But if you find a report, so you were able to find in Holden has their annual town report. They had to do an article. Their most recent report is 2022 on their website. In 2022, they had an article on the OPEB. Quote, this article represents this year's payment to a fund to provide for future other post-employment benefits for retired personnel of the town. However, given the economic uncertainty that many Holden residents are facing this year, the FinCom decided to fund OPEB at the minimum level only and not at the 10% of free cash calculation. To date, the OPEB trust fund has 8.8 million, which is a large amount. And again, continuing the quote, which is estimated to be only approximately 40% of the total liability. Maintaining this fund improves our credit rating and ensures our employees have received the benefits they have earned. So they somehow have managed to fall 60% behind the ball on where their trust fund is supposed to be funded.
Yeah.
That is
And they're
worrisome.
facing probably the same challenges with school budget and town budgets and Prop 2.5 revenue
And so,
restrictions that we face, and they're dealing with it that way.
And
There's
so-
no legal requirement to put money into the trust fund every year.
so I thought I heard you say it the other way. That's why I
Other
was asking.
towns have skipped years
Yeah.
and then made up when they had the cash.
Yeah.
And when I talked to Roselli, the auditors, he said the same thing. There's no requirement that you put into it, but why would you have it if you're not gonna put something into it?
Right.
Some towns have a 2% regulation local of the budget, you automatically put into it. So it's an article every year you put. into it.
Holden's was 10% of free cash.
Yeah, 10% of free cash. There's another community, I can't think of the name of it, it's out west. It has a 5%. No matter what, 5% of the budget goes into it. And they've been doing that for years, but it's a money town.
Yep.
But no, I see, I understand what she's saying. If you're creating the trust fund, you have to go through all of this procedure.
Yeah. And I think the only reason I wanted to make sure we discuss it this evening is in light of where our current budget sits.
Right.
Is this the year this should be moved forward, or should we maybe figure out how to bring it forward in the future years versus making it something for the meeting a few weeks from now? I mean, I realize an article's been written, so it has to be brought forward, but it concerns me that the town could, it could be.
Well, I think we need all the numbers to tell the people what it's gonna cost before we throw it on
Yeah,
to them.
Right.
So I'm inclined to hold.
hold it off for a year, table it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's, by the way, I agree with Corey. I think it's an excellent program.
Mhm.
I think it lets you retain key staff.
Employees, right. I mean, when I talked to Lori about it, separate from when you were talking to her, one of the things she referenced to me is the fact that there are some towns that between, and she referenced one I think I probably shouldn't name, but she said between the benefits of medical insurance and things that they covered, like we cover, I think it's 70-30 is what our split is. Most towns are 60-40. She said this particular town is 80-20.
Mhm.
And then they also have this particular benefit for post-retirement.
Mhm.
And she said, but then when you look at their salary and wages, they're on the low end of the scale, but they have provided such strong benefits that they have a good team of people that are all there because they know what their future benefits are.
That's the
So
balance I
there's-
was talking about.
Pardon?
That's the balance I'm talking.
That's
about.
what I'm saying. So
You're
there
gonna
isn't,
Pay them.
there's an offset. That's what I'm going to is I think benefits are very important. I think we should have them, but I just am not sure that we should jump into it this 2 weeks from now.
And
3
so
weeks.
she's supposed to get back to us with more information because it sounds like she believes she has some other post-employee benefit numbers from surrounding
Oh,
towns
okay, good.
that she could share with us to give us a more accurate idea. Because again, you think, say that's the 7,600 for one employee and then, 7,600, again, you're at, 15,200
Right.
for two. The point that was made was that's not accurate. It actually increases exponentially because every year your healthcare cost goes up by a certain percent.
Yeah.
And every time you add another employee, that's another multiplier. So it's a multiplier times a multiplier is that it's going to continue to rise and the town has to be able to afford it.
And that's what you were getting at, when I talked to the auditors, is the age of these people. When are they going to be retiring?
Right.
That's factored in.
Yeah. And what's their life expectancy?
I just think we need a lot more information.
Yeah, I would think it would be a wise decision by the Board of Selectmen to table it for this town meeting and let's dig into it further and get more research done before we bring it forward as a program.
I would just say the Board of Selectmen was not on these emails from Lori,
Yeah.
No.
the accountant.
Well, it's because you started asking a lot of questions and there was just a flurry of back
So
and
we
forth.
can forward them to you, but I think it's important to note that Lori is our financial expert. She's the town accountant. She sees all our numbers. If we trust that she's the financial expert, she's saying, why are you doing this year?
Mhm.
And that's her professional opinion. And it does differ from my personal opinion, and that's going to happen.
Good accountants. I like that.
They are, they're very
I'm married to
conservative.
one. I deal with this every day.
But, so anyway, the rest of the articles, I have nothing else to go over on them, guys, unless you do. I don't know if you have any other ones that we haven't covered, Don?
What I was gonna ask you is, we talked briefly about the cruiser stabilization fund. Do we know how much money we have in there now?
we have $33,214 according to my number, but I last looked at that at the time of the special town meeting. So I think it's correct, but I haven't tried looking at it. We can get it tomorrow. I mean, it's out there. Lori has it. That's where I get it from. And I last asked that the date on it says it was back in January when I asked, but it was after the special town meeting. So I think it's accurate.
I wasn't sure if Fred was throwing a number that was higher than that.
Yeah, I heard 44.
44?
I think he thinks there's an extra year in there or something, but
Yeah,
right now it's got 3 years of accruals. This would be year 4 if we had
Yeah.
funded it this year.
I didn't think it was that high.
And I think it should be funded at the special town meeting if we have the funds to do it.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't.
But it's not an article for the town meeting right now. It's not even up. Nobody wrote the article, so.
Oh.
You know,
That would help.
it's, somebody's got to write the article and it's not done, so.
Yeah.
But that, yeah, it's 33,214 is what I showed Don.
Okay, that's what I remembered, but just making sure.
Other than what we've talked about, does anyone have any new or old business for the finance committee?
Mhm.
I would like to make a couple of motions if I may. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the 4:10:24 minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I would also make a motion that we approve the 4:17 meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I was a little delinquent getting those put together, so we have 2 this week. And I would suggest we plan to meet on May 8th, a week from tonight.
Understood.
Don, you're meeting on Monday, so let's say by May 8th, we're gonna try to wrap this all up with the budget.
Wonderful.
You're in agreement?
Yes.
No-
Second.
No more surprises.
No more surprises, hopefully. Again, that was, I'm glad Wendy brought it up now than 2 days after we had the town meeting. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
I'm glad we asked the questions. Because we were making some assumptions based on what the information we had. And she had newer information. I mean, it's when you want it to come forward is before you make a decision, not after.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think we're okay. So with that, unless someone has anything else they want to discuss, I would make a motion. We adjourn the meeting at
Second.
6:53.
I second that.
You're anxious to go. All in favor?
Yeah, eating some steak. All
He's
right,
got dinner calling. All right, meeting is ended. Thank you.
thank you.